Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports.
The business of sports can be intimidating or hard for a startup to break into.
We really appreciate when our owners are actually there, with us through the journey.
Teams, ours especially, have been very intentional to diversify at all levels of the company.
I think we're in the golden years for the NFL and college football.
Our demographic reach has continued to expand.
This is going to be really unlocking the streaming platform for sports fans.
Sports valuations are rising. We'll see when they peak.
You don't have to be the best in your sport to make a whole ton of money.
Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports show, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr.
I'm Scarlet.
And I'm Damian Sassower.
Coming up on the show, we talk with Milwaukee Brewers chairman and principal owner Mark Attanasio.
His Brewers are off to a pretty good start this year. We'll talk to him about the season so far and how his club is navigating the trouble in regional sports networks.
We're starting to do some contingency planning for next year if, things start to go against them in the bankruptcy court. But for sure, we will, through MLB media or otherwise, we'll broadcast our games to our fans next year.
We'll also talk some golf with someone who's been covering it for a long, long time, author and sports journalist Ann Liguori.
All that is straight ahead on the Bloomberg Business of Sports. But first, we lost a legend in the NBA. Jerry West, three-time Hall of Fame selection and the inspiration for the NBA logo, died several days ago at the age of 86. He had the nicknames of Mr. Clutch, the logo, and I could go on. With us to talk about Jerry West and such sad news, L.A. Bureau Chief John Gittelsohn. Thank you so much, John, for joining us on the Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Good to be with you on a sad day for L.A. sports fans and beyond L.A., too.
This is something, I knew this part, that he was the all-star in all 14 of his NBA seasons. What I forgot, now in 1972, he won the championship with the Lakers, but I forgot this. The Lakers played the Boston Celtics in 1969, and that was the first year that award was given out, and he won it. And it is still the only time, John, when a player on the losing team was selected as part of that award.
Yeah. He had a very frustrating career. He won a championship when he was in 12th grade, and then he was like runner-up until 1972.
Wow.
When he finally was on a team that beat the New York Knicks.
That's amazing. And remember now, that was the same year in that era where Pat Riley also was with the Lakers. They both eventually went to the head office, and both were very successful, especially Jerry West and all the stuff that he's done.
Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting pairing because Jerry West was very instrumental in bringing Pat Riley to the coaching position. He was like a sort of second thought, and they were leaders of the team were trying to bring in all these other guys. But really what Jerry West was amazing is star player, much more of a star player probably than Pat Riley or Phil Jackson or some of those legendary coaches. And he went on to be a manager, and what he was really great at was finding the chemistry and bringing together teams that created dynasties. Under his leadership, he formed two dynasties when he was managing the Lakers. First, brought together Magic Johnson with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and James Worthy in the 80s. And then he was the guy who brought together Shaquille O'Neal, another big man like Kareem, with Kobe Bryant, the other sort of star dazzling player too. And yeah, that was like something that Jerry West was able to do, was spot talent and spot chemistry that could build these great teams.
He creates dynasties, which, is incredibly difficult. And I like to go back to what you said about how it was his career itself was very frustrating. And we saw all of that kind of depicted in the HBO TV series Winning Time, which is based off the book Showtime, which, of course, I guess HBO couldn't use that name because of its competitor. But, John, I bring this up because the Australian actor Jason Clarke played Jerry West. And I think for people who don't know Jerry West, they saw this depiction of this guy who was quick to get angry and who was a little bit wild in terms of controlling his emotions. This was very upsetting to the late Jerry West.
It was very upsetting to him, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar wrote that it was not true. Kareem, who did some acting himself, he was like an Airplane, the comedy. And anyway, he was like, yeah, I get it. Hollywood does this kind of stuff, but that is not the Jerry West I know. What the show did capture is the sort of miserableness and the self-inflicted torture of Jerry West. Mm-hmm. He didn't go smashing trophies. That was like one of the criticisms of the HBO, dramatization. But he was a guy who, when the Lakers were playing in the finals, he couldn't watch it on TV. He was like pacing outside of the arena. Mm-hmm. He went for a drive. He was just such a sort of tortured soul. There was this video I saw where he said, I'm probably the most miserable person on earth. And he was like this troubled perfectionist. And it just killed him that he was so close, but no cigar, so many times as a player. And then, it happened again when he was managing the Lakers early on against the Celtics before they finally prevailed and beat the Celtics with Kareem and Magic forming this incredible Showtime team.
Well, John, I think you'll agree. I mean, the Jerry West we saw depicted in Winning Time, I mean, I think Jerry West, I think everyone who knows Jerry West, he is a lot more nuanced than what we really saw there. And look at the outpouring of love. I mean, forget about what he's done for the Lakers. Look at what he built in Golden State, what he built for the Clippers. Steve Ballmer refers to him as his basketball father, Steve Ballmer of Microsoft, if I'm not mistaken. So, we just saw an outpouring across the board from the Michael Jordans, the LeBron James, you name it, Magic Johnson. My question for you, I guess, is, you're the bureau chief for Bloomberg News out of Los Angeles, and I imagine you're a Lakers fan, but my God, how could you not be a Jerry West fan if you're a Clippers fan also, or a Golden State fan? I mean, he owns the state of California.
Oh, yeah, he had a stint at the Memphis Grizzlies, too, where didn't necessarily get a championship ring. Right. He's definitely among the, incredible legends of L.A. sports, and sadly more. I think, one of the things that just felt weird was that it was the Clippers who announced his passing, because people associate Jerry West so much with the Lakers. And it was kind of like a sad commentary on the Lakers that it was the Clippers under Steve Ballmer who, claimed him as their own at the end. There's a statue outside the now called Crypto.com arena where the Lakers play of Jerry West in his sort of logo pose, dribbling the ball. The Clippers, though, are building a new arena in Inglewood right now that's supposed to open this fall. That's right near the fabulous Forum where the Lakers played, in the sort of Magic Showtime years. Mm-hmm. So there is a bit of a changing of the guard here. It'll be interesting to see moving forward how the Clippers do. Neither of those teams are, though, in the finals like Boston and the Mavericks are this year.
You talked about the Lakers and how things have changed. We also know that the Lakers are in search of a new coach, and they did try to hire UConn men's basketball coach Dan Hurley, who, of course, won 2 national championships with the Huskies. But that wasn't enough. The Lakers calling wasn't enough for him to leave UConn.
Yeah, I think that says something about the Lakers right now. I'm not the total, NBA insider expert. I'm no Stephen A. Smith or somebody like that. But the fact that somebody didn't want to take the coaching job for the Lakers says something about the view of their front office, their management, and their talent. Right now, LeBron James he's the guy who seems to run the team. He's got his co-managers in very strategic positions related to the team. And he's kind of past his prime, but he's like this giant pillar there who's kind of preventing the team from moving on to a new rebuilding phase. The same thing happened under Kobe Bryant, where he had a few great years after Shaquille O'Neal left the team, but then he was just there, this anchor who was past his prime, and the Lakers had to rebuild. They were lucky to bring in LeBron, who won a championship with the Lakers in 2020. And otherwise, they just haven't been able to, compete in a full regular season with the best in the league these days. So they definitely have to do a rebuilding, and they probably have to move on to a new generation of players. So it could be years before the Lakers are in a position to be number one again.
John, I think about Jerry West, and then I think about people like Julius Erving, whom he played against, and at the tail end there. And I think about Walt Clyde Frazier, those battles he had against the Knicks. And I think about, some of these players who are getting a little bit long in the tooth, and I just wonder, what's it going to take for us to start celebrating them before something unfortunate happens, John? These are legends of the game who are still with us. And, it's amazing how old this sport has really gotten.
And Bill Walton just died recently. And what's beautiful about sports is there's new people coming along, a new generation of players. One of the things I think is interesting is, Jerry West is the supposedly inspiration for the logo of the NBA that was done in the late 60s. But then came Michael Jordan, a different logo in, the Air Jordan look.
The jump man.
Like flying through the air. Yeah, exactly. And, Jerry West was like grounded, dribbling, the very sort of old school. It's a great pose, but it's so different from flying Air Jordan. And I don't know what'll be next in the name, image, and likeness, era that we're entering.
That's a good point.
I do think, what's beautiful about sports and athletics in general is how there are always new superstars coming along, and there is no GOAT, no greatest of all time, I don't think, in basketball, because they keep reinventing it.
John Gittelsohn, thank you so much for speaking with us and sharing some context about Jerry West. Jerry West, of course, LA Laker player, coach, executive, but perhaps most well known for his silhouette, which is still the NBA's logo. He was an active team builder. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Up next on the show, we turn to baseball, and with Milwaukee Brewers chairman and principal owner Mark Attanasio. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports show, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with Scarlet and Damian Sassower. The Milwaukee Brewers are off to a strong start this season, continuing a trend. They've made the playoffs in 5 of the last 6 seasons. Here now to talk to us a little about the club and more is Mark Attanasio. He is the Milwaukee Brewers chairman and principal owner. Mark, welcome to the Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Well, it's great to join everyone, and thanks for having me.
I like your club. I remember it as a kid watching the Brewers, because I'm a big Tigers fan, and when you guys would come into town at Tiger Stadium, you guys always had that strut. Tell me about your team and the history of it, just to get us started, and baseball in general, what you think of it.
Well, thanks, Michael. And the team's got it's definitely got a bounce in its step now. We've got, I think, the youngest position player team in the league, and I think we lead the league in on-field altercations. 3 or 4 of them already, and we're only about a third of the way through the season, maybe a little more now. And so you probably remember Harvey's Wallbangers, and we're doing more with speed and really old school baseball. But we do have some power also. So I grew up in the Bronx in an Italian neighborhood, Pelham Bay, I thought I was going to play center field for the Yankees, following my idol, Mickey Mantle. My dad's idol, Joe DiMaggio. I could not, in high school, I hit a lot of lazy fly balls off of curveballs. So I was happy I hit the ball, but they're not really, not the hard contact we're talking about these days. So it's always been a passion of mine. And when Commissioner Seelig put the team up for sale, even though I had limited nexus with Milwaukee, my younger brother's wife is from Wisconsin. You don't get these opportunities very often. And I was fortunate to get chosen. And here I am 20 years later.
I got to ask you, Mark, about something that's kind of swept the baseball world and the professional sports world overall. We know baseball is having a bit of a renaissance moment. The rule changes last year have really revived a lot of people's interest in the game, given that they're now a brisk 2 hours, 40-something minutes, as opposed to dragging out to 4 hours. But at the same time, we're seeing the fallout from the increased proliferation of sports betting. And you see that with Padres infielder Tucupita Marcano getting banned, a lifetime ban from MLB for betting on games. What do you see when you look at the intersection of sports betting and professional sports and how these two are on a bit of a collision course?
Well, yeah, Scarlet, a lot's been made of the sort of dual nature of what's going on with, I find, and you can see on some of the broadcasts, even some of the gaming ideas, it's as much, fantasy as it is, what you might call, there is a gaming aspect to it, but you're guessing who's going to get hits that night or whatever. And look, this is a challenge for all leagues to navigate around. MLB was somewhat late to the party in sports betting, and we're all very mindful of the challenges with it. That said, from afar, it's certainly the ability to follow games in the NFL. I think, frankly, starts as much with fantasy and people playing in fantasy leagues with each other, but then does move to betting, and it does bring interest to our league as well. So I know we work hard at the league level to manage those concerns, but at the same time enhance interest in our game.
Mark, I didn't realize you grew up in Pelham Bay. I was under the impression you grew up in Tenafly. I'm a Fort Lee High School graduate myself. And, it kind of makes sense that your brother Paul wrote the screenplay for Donnie Brasco, now that I know that. But nevertheless, I wanted to congratulate you on an incredible season. I mean, you made a lot of changes this offseason, some highly controversial moves. And here the Brewers are again in first place. And, I just have to ask you about the Brewers' relationship with Diamond Sports Group. We know what's been going on there. We know how it's impacted a lot of these small markets like the Utah Jazz, et cetera. What comes next? What's the future for the Brewers and how you're going to reach your audience?
Yeah, so those are, first of all, mention I did, we moved to Tenafly for middle school. So when I was hitting those lazy fly balls, it was for the Tenafly Tigers. Yeah. But definitely was formative years were in the Bronx. We can talk about our moves and how we approach the team separately and the success we've had. But, relative to Diamond, Pat Murphy's our manager. He talks about win tonight. We take it one game at a time. We've had a good relationship, with Diamond Sinclair, and before that with Fox. For this year, I think it's all good. And we're starting to do some contingency planning for next year if things start to go against them in the bankruptcy court. But for sure, we will, through MLB media or otherwise, we'll broadcast our games to our fans next year. See,
Scarlet and Damian ask the very pertinent questions, and then Captain Goofball is going to come in and ask his question. And here's what set me off on this question. When you said you used to hit a lot of high pop-ups, which brings me to the phrase of high pop-up, which brings me to the phrase of it's a home run or nothing here on Home Run Derby with Mark Scott. You know what I'm talking about. The 1960 show where they pit two top pro players and they would go at it for Home Run Derby, and obviously you have it now in the All-Star Game. Why can't we just bring back the old Home Run Derby as a weekly show? Because, man, that was great. I got all the reruns of that. I love that show.
It's interesting that you raised that, because that was just a touch, not to date myself or you, Michael, that was just a touch before my time. I forgot about that. And there's enormous fan interest in the home run derby at the All-Star game. Now that we've had this first set of rules, which it was interesting, now seems so like always part of the game. Stolen bases are always part of the game. We've gotten them back now with slightly longer base. All the games, we talked about Al Kaline, Mickey Lolich. Mickey Lolich used to start, pitch 300 innings, and the games were 2 hours. So we figured to get the games closer to what we all, grew up with. And I think that we are looking at a lot of things that may be different. What's great about what you just suggested is that doesn't change the nature of the game. There's a fan just feeling on both sides about the runner on second base. On days that we lose, like a couple, against the Phillies. I don't like the runner on second base when we beat the White Sox. I liked it, so I'm good with it. But what you're talking about, we could do. Recently there was a matchup with the Pirates and the Dodgers, and you had Ohtani against Skeens of the Pirates, who's the pitcher who was drafted first, who throws over 100 miles an hour, and there was a lot of fan interest in that. So. There's home run derby on some basis, especially with the number of guys who hit home runs. I don't want to go on too long on this, but let's say this. Once we get done with this interview, I'm going to call into the league today and make that suggestion. And we'll know because we have record of it here. Will have started.
Mark, it's so clear that you are a true baseball fan through and through. This is something that goes deep, goes back to your childhood. I want to ask you something in your role as an owner of a professional sports team. We have been reporting here that Jeff Lurie is exploring a sale of a minority stake in the Philadelphia Eagles. And of course, we're all keeping track of different transactions in the sports world. Arctos Partners has unveiled a new sports franchise index that tracks the values of sports franchises across North America based on sales of team stakes. And what it shows is that there are annualized returns of 12% over the past 2 decades. Now, this is only based on 400 transactions since 1960. I want to understand from you, does that sound about right to you? And do you think the creation of this kind of benchmark will increase demand from institutional investors?
I think that type of a benchmark and the work that Arctos has done will help institutional investors talk to their investment committees in making some of these investments that not only have showed returns over a period of time, but because over any shorter period of time, you could say it's just that market window. But over a long period of time, what you see is growth. You have an asset that also, when I was making the Brewers investment, my wife, Debbie, came into my study and said, "You're not going to lose all our money, are you?" And, my day job, as I call it, is one of the founding partners at Crescent Capital. We manage $45 billion. I said, "Deb, we didn't have $45 billion under management then. We probably had 10. But I said, kind of built the business by not losing money. We're going to try to not do that with the family money." But one of the things that Bank of America do back to 2004 was to show that sports were a non-correlated asset. The investment didn't necessarily correlate to other things going on in the economy or from a macroeconomic basis. Mm-hmm. And, I think the best example of interest in sports is the new NBA contract.
Yeah.
$76 billion, if I have that right, over 11 years. And because there's really nothing like a live sporting event in terms of capturing interest. So the fact that, Arctos can demonstrate over decades significant compounding, I think will help institutional investors who otherwise have an interest. I get a number of inquiries, not for, the Brewers or for things I'm doing, but from investors looking at things who are otherwise in our, investors at Crescent, asking about investing in sports funds. I've had over a dozen inquiries and things like that. So, that's very topical, and I think it's for real.
And Damian, one day, since there's an index, there may even be an ETF tracking it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Mark, my last question for you really, it has to do with obviously the stadium, American Family Field. You got the funding in place. Congratulations with all that. When can we expect to see Milwaukee host an All-Star game? Is that coming up? What comes next, Mark? Give us a scoop.
don't want to get in trouble with Commissioner Seelig, but I was going to suggest to Rob Manford, our current commissioner, that we could have an oldie. And since Back to the Future here, we could continue the game that got stopped in 2001 when the ballpark was built. Bring all those players back and finish that game. I think that would get a lot of interest. And look, we're in line for that, but. The league's goal is to promote the newer stadiums, which I, support for sure. It's great to see, the new ballparks. We think we've kept our 20-year-old ballpark fresh and new, and we continue to raise our hand, and I think you'll see a game. I hope sometime in the next 5 or 7 years. I don't know if Rob will go with having us continue the 2001 game, but I kind of like the idea.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Mark Attanasio is chairman and principal owner of Milwaukee Brewers. He's also co-founder and managing partner of Crescent Capital Group.
Up next, we talk some golf with friend of the show and author of the book Life on the Green, Lessons and Wisdom from Legends of Golf, Ann Liguori. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports show, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with my colleagues Scarlet and Damian Sassower. With the U.S. Open going on now, we wanted to talk a little golf with a friend of the show, Ann Liguori. She has covered 26 Masters, dozens of other major championships and tournaments, and is the author of the book Life on the Green, Lessons and Wisdom from Legends of Golf. And welcome to the Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Hey, my pleasure, guys. Glad to be here.
Well, U.S. Open weekend, one of the favorites, Jon Rahm, is out. He has a foot injury. Unfortunately, he can't play in it.
That's right. He was in the press conference, said he had a lesion in between two toes that got infected. And he pulled out of the LIV event in Houston right before the U.S. Open. And, during the press conference, it just seemed like he was limping. He was wearing flip-flops because it was a little swollen. So I figured it was just a matter of time. He just was in pain. And it's too bad that he can't play the U.S. Open. But how do you prevent these kinds of things? It's kind of like a weird injury. But hopefully the infection will be gone soon and he'll be back.
And we know you are down in Pinehurst right now, and you mentioned LIV. And, the last time I think the U.S. Open was played at Pinehurst in 2014, Martin Kamer, who's now with LIV, ran away with the field and won. Talk to us about what we can expect from LIV golfers here this weekend. Obviously, they didn't show up so well in the PGA, or for that matter, even the Masters. I mean, talk to us a little bit about, with Jon Rahm on the fence, what can we expect from golfers like Mickelson, Koepka, and the rest?
Well, Bryson DeChambeau, I mean, he's a LIV player. Brooks Koepka, the major machine, is a LIV player. So, we are expecting these guys, a few of these guys, to perform really well. Bryson DeChambeau was in the interview room, and I asked him a question about, how does this course, Pinehurst, compare to Winged Foot, where he won the U.S. Open in 2020? And the two courses are totally different. And Bryson said he has to play boring golf, which is hard for somebody like Bryson. He's a mad scientist to do, but you have to be very strategic on this golf course. The greens are like domed.
I heard.
Tops, and nothing stays on the green. You have to know where to miss, and even if you have a great shot, they can just, depending on the speed of the green, they're very quick right now. They just kind of roll off into these runoff areas. So your short game has to be so incredible, and just to get up on the green, and then of course once you're on the green, you have to make your putt. So it'll be interesting to see how the players kind of approach this golf course. Is very, very difficult with these dome greens. And, Tiger was saying things like, he could hit anywhere from a 4-iron bump and run to
a 60-degree
different wood to a putter from off the green. So the strategy is going to be interesting to see from these players.
One thing I want to ask about with Tiger is that he said that the PGA Tour and LIV Golf are eyeing the so-called end game. Can you comment more on that?
Well, Tiger doesn't give up much in these press conferences, but there was a transactional subcommittee meeting in New York City, and Tiger was a part of it. And when he was asked about any progress between PGA Tour and LIV Golf, he said the meeting was very productive. As far as a light at the end of the tunnel, he says, we're closer. He says, we've discussed a lot of different endings and how to get there. So I just think there's a lot of complicated issues to discuss. If a entity like the Saudi Public Investment Fund comes in with billions of dollars, you figure they're going to want a lot of control. And you have to figure that PGA Tour and PGA Tour Enterprises, they do not want to give up a lot of control. It's one thing to have a seat at the table, which is what the Saudis want with American golf and with the PGA Tour. But it's another matter of just how much control they will have. And the PGA Tour, and certainly Tiger, who's kind of leading this effort from the players' standpoint, they don't want to give up any control. So it will be interesting to see, how they can move forward and how each party really, wins in this negotiation.
And I count at least 10 pros with a real shot to win this thing. I mean, if you just look at Vegas odds, you've got 12 pros who are at 40-1 odds or better, but the man everyone is chasing is Scottie Scheffler. Talk to us a little bit about what you expect from him, his prep. I mean, what's he look like? I mean, talk to us about the man.
Scottie Scheffler is the man, as you say. He's won 5 times in 8 starts. The only time he didn't really do great, he tied for 8th at the PGA Championship, and that was the championship, in Valhalla where he got arrested, which was a joke. But those charges were dropped, thank goodness. But even, under, just such a terrible scenario there, he basically played really, really well in the golf event. He was lucky to even be able to get back to that tee time in the second round of the PGA Championships in Louisville. But he's won, he won the Arnold Palmer, he won the Players Championship, he won the Masters, he won the RBC Heritage, and he just won the Memorial. So he's coming, he comes into Pinehurst just so strong and so focused, and he and his wife Meredith had a baby boy a couple weeks ago. So what a road for, last couple of weeks for Scottie Scheffler has just been unbelievable. He's the guy everybody's chasing right now. He's won major tournaments, these signature events where all the competitors are stars. I mean, it's not like he's winning these lesser tournaments on the tour. These are signature events where all the top players are, basically.
Well, Ann, last question from me. I mean, there's a little bit more on the line, this weekend at Pinehurst than just a $20 million purse. There are spots at the Olympics that are up for grabs here, right? I mean, August 1st to the 4th, Le Golf National in Paris. I mean, that's, I think, the cutoff to qualify for the tournament's coming up. I mean, talk to us a little bit about that. How many golfers actually qualify for the U.S. team?
There should be 4, and that's about the max any country can bring to the Olympics. So, it's basically on rankings points. So it'll be interesting to see, how things goes here. I mean, Colin Morikawa, he has a great shot of doing very well here at the U.S. Open. He was second at the Memorial. He was third at the Masters. He's been really, really, he's kind of gotten his game back together, and he's won 2 major championships. So Morikawa could be right in there.
Schauffele, Scheffler, I think those are those 2 guys are pretty much there. I mean, it's who's the 4? Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. Yeah,
Xander Schauffele, obviously winning the PGA Championship, and just when the date comes, it will be the top 4 players, and that's it. Now, whether or not though, this is an interesting question. Are they going to want to play in the Olympics? I mean, it's not a given that these top players are going to want to go over there and represent their country. You would think it's a no-brainer, but it's interesting. You don't know. I mean, some players in the last Olympics declined that opportunity. So we'll have to see. I can't imagine Scottie Scheffler not wanting to represent the United States, but we shall see.
We got to talk about your book, Life on the Green, Lessons and Wisdom from Legends of Golf. And you talk to a lot of legends, including Tom Watson, Jack Nicklaus, and Annika Sorenstam.
Yeah, I interviewed 12 legends, 6 men, 6 women, and it's what they learned from their iconic golf careers that they use in their day-to-day life. So it's a lot about life wisdom, a lot of great stories about their success stories, their careers. I mean, Jack Nicklaus goes into so many great stories, his rivalries, not only his wins in the majors, but also on the PGA Tour and his Ryder Cup stories. And he's all about putting family first and integrity and sportsmanship. And then you have Annika Sorenstam talking about there's no shortcuts to success and her work ethic. And Ben Crenshaw talks about destiny. I mean, it's really kind of a unique take on these personalities. And I've been covering golf for 30 years, and I learned so much that I didn't know with these recent interviews with these 12 legends that I put in this book. So I think if you're a diehard golfer, you're going to really enjoy it and you're going to learn a lot. And if you're not a golfer, the themes are universal, and I think you'll still get a lot out of it. It's very uplifting.
And a shout out, because you are the founder and president of the Ann Liguori Foundation. You raise money for cancer research and care through charity golf events and more. Tell us a bit about that.
Oh, well, thanks for asking about that. Well, this is our 26th year hosting a golf event. It's called the Ann Liguori Foundation Charity Golf Classic. We had it just a few weeks ago this year at Friar's Head, which is one of the most prestigious golf courses in the country. It's on the east end of Long Island. And, I lost my dad to cancer when I was in college. And my brother, who was only 22, 2 years later, got leukemia and succumbed to leukemia. So at a very early age, I started, raising money for cancer awareness, leukemia awareness, and research. And 26 years later, we've been able to, help a lot of different not-for-profits to focus on cancer research and leukemia research. So we try to go to a top golf course in the Hamptons on the East End. And, people want to play these golf courses because it's very tough if you're not a member to get on a lot of these prestigious layouts. And, we played at Maidstone, we played at Sabonic, The Bridge, Atlantic, Friar's Head, West Hampton Country Club. I mean, we've had a really nice array of golf courses, and the golf industry is so very generous. So I get a lot of support. So it's a win-win. So I'm proud to say we've been doing it for 26 years, and we've raised a lot of money.
Before we let you go, and it's a very good cause, thank you for even doing all of that. We most appreciate it. Before we let you go, and see, Damian told me something before we went on the air. We got to talk about this. You played the simulation of Pinehurst, didn't you?
So, I said I'm really excited for this weekend, and Michael, he goes, "Oh, you played before?" And I go, "Well, yes and no. Well, yes, in that I played it a number of times on the simulator, but no, never, in person." So it's kind of fun, like when you have that opportunity to kind of play some of these courses, and then it's. So he's laughing about that, but I think they're popping up all throughout the city also. So that's these little simulator kind of places where guys hang out and ladies hang out and,
right.
work on our swing. And
yeah, that's become such a popular way to kind of improve your swing. I mean, you have Topgolf, you have Golf Zone, you have all these different places now where you can go and have a cocktail, have some food, and have some fun, trying to swing a golf club and playing, as you say, different golf courses. I don't know if you're going to get the same feel with that the greens have here on number 2 at Pinehurst if you're going to, go into one of those places. But, hey, it's fun, and you get a little bit of a workout. At least your hand gets worked down your arm, from drinking whatever you like to drink.
Ann Liguori, sports journalist and author, Life on the Green, Lessons and Wisdom from Legends of Golf, also founder and president of the Ann Liguori Foundation. Thanks for joining us on the Bloomberg Business of Sports show. We are here each and every week at the same time. For my colleagues Scarlet Fu and Damian Sassower, and I'm a lucky fella to know them, I'm Michael Barr. Tune in again next week for the latest on the stories moving big money in the world of sports. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.